We've got another question from Claire. She says, where does Scottish nationalism fit into your analysis?
Yeah, that's interesting. So it would be absurd, I think, and look, I'll preempt this by saying that I'm not a fan of the idea of Scottish independence for some reasons that are technical and for some reasons that are sort of personal. And the personal stuff is I come from an immigrant British family. So for us, it's quite a common tendency in England to, among sort of immigrant families, to not really associate too strongly with England, which is seen as quite sort of singular and white, frankly. And Britain is seen as, you know, the many things become one, the many flags come together. It feels like because it's got the notion of mixture within it, it's a more receptive concept to immigrants. That is not something that's going to bother very many Scottish voters, and nor should it. But for my own personal stuff, I am who I am here. That's how I feel. I'm also not hugely keen to see what happens to England electorally once you take away that block of left-wing votes in Scotland. That makes it actually really quite hard to get the Tories out of power at any time. Not hugely keen on it. However, it would be absurd of me to pretend that the SNP are similar to the nationalist parties that I talk about in that book, right? Like Donald Trump or Viktor Orban in Hungary. I mean, they're manifestly not. You know, these guys support international institutions much stronger, more strongly than our governments do. They don't attack the individual. They don't attack sort of individual rights. They do support human rights. I mean, it would be bizarre and sort of cheap to suggest otherwise. I do think that in the next period, as we build up to what I think is almost inevitable sort of referendum on Scottish independence, no matter what Boris Johnson says, they are going to be faced with a series of political problems. The most easy answer will be to lie about them and to just disconnect from objective truth in the same way that the Brexit guys have. Right. So, I mean, you're going to have the debate over the Scotland-England border is exactly the same as the debate over the Irish border that we have been having for 5 years now, which is that, well, fine, if you want to separate completely on your regulatory structure, which you have to, if you're ultimately planning to join the EU, there's going to be checks on that border. You know, this is going to be a series of bureaucratic checks that we're going to have. And the temptation, unlike last time when they published a white paper on independence during the referendum, and as you said, well, here's our plan. The temptation will be to do what the Brexiters do. And I think on the basis of that, you will see which of those instincts within the SNP wins out. But ultimately, I have to say at the moment, I have a fair amount of faith in that party that even though I don't agree with the program, it is deliverable in a way that still commits to objective reality and doesn't start getting into that will of the people horror story that we've seen in the rest of the country over the last 5 years.